Hello, Tom, aka Gedeon here for Tabletop Tap Room. So, just to make sure we're all on the same page, I am reviewing our first look at Star Frontiers New Genesis, the supposed reboot of Star Frontiers by New TSR, and this is a article that they have put in the fan magazine run by Dave Johnson, the game designer for Star Frontiers, New Genesis. And this is for a game that was on its way back from the printers 2 months ago, but we still haven't seen it yet. So this is our first look at this article that they're releasing in Alarms and Journeys. Link in the show notes. My recommendation is get it through Kindle Plus, where you will get it for free and don't pay for it because you will have buyer's regret. So let's get to it. There are three major areas of problems I see in this convoluted, confusing timeline, history, lore dump that they've done. And then there is the actual review of the timeline. I'm going to put the review of the timeline in part 2 of this. So it'll be a separate video to keep these short and manageable. And I do think Star Frontiers New Genesis needs to be taken in small doses. So this is the first page of the Star Frontiers New Genesis history by D. Johnson, copyright 2022 TSR LLC. And I'm not going to read this word for word because if I did, I not only do I think all of my subscribers would unsubscribe, I think some of you'd hunt me down and kill me for subjecting you to that level of pain. Their list of alien species in the setting. As it goes on, you get these alien species mentioned. On page 2, we have humanoids and humanity. Humanoids and humans. Now, I just want to point out that could be two different races because humanoids are not humans. They're human-like. That's what humanoid is, the breakdown of humanoid. But these words get used interchangeably, but then there's other clues within the subject matter that make you think, oh, so we've got a group of humanoids of which there are some groups that are like augmented humans, and it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird and confusing. But at any rate, we have humans, and then we get the entomoids. We get a first contact story of the entomoids making first contact with humans. And the entomoids say, by the way, we live in a civilization, and there's another species called the Atsinki, Aatsinki. That's the last you'll ever hear of them. They drop off the face of this lore dump. Then we hear about the molluscoids, which are not nice. And then there is some unknown species that is human-like, but wearing power armor. And this species is responsible for this thing that happens where this civilization that the entomoids make with the humans and apparently the Atsinki is called the United Confederation of Planets Systems. This early in the timeline, it's the United Confederation of Planets Systems. It's going to change, and it will just be Planet singular systems later, which makes no sense, but this is the only time that they actually made it planets and systems. And so this unknown species of human-like, that's human-like but wearing power armor that we know completely nothing about other than they're human-like with power armor, come in and destroy this civilization, destroy the capital planet, destroy the sector planets, capitals, and just destroy this civilization and send it into the dark era, 1,000 years plus or minus. They actually put that 1,000 years plus or minus in the lore dump. And so we get this unknown species that we will never hear about again. Then on page 4, we find out that during this dark era, there is a race called the Yaz. It's just suddenly there they are, the Yaz, and the Yaz interbreed with an unspecified compatible race, and they become the Uriel race. So, I almost need a chart here because there's going to be a lot of unspecified races. So that's the Yaz interbreed with an unspecified but compatible race and become the Uriel. The Drawl race, they diminish, but they evolve and become the Arlet race. And then the Ver race evolve into the Entomoids. But the problem is that the Entomoids had already made first contact with humans. So I don't know what the answer to this is, other than they did specify there was going to be time travel. So the Entomoids make first contact with the humans, a society is formed, the society is destroyed, and then the Entomoids evolve from a race called the Ver. They're not the ones who met the humans. It's weird. So then you get use of cybernetics in humanoid community makes humans weak. So here again, we get this humanoid community. There's a humanoid community, human-like. But then there's a group of humans who are getting involved in cybernetics, and it makes them weak. And then we get the emoids, E''moids. Now you would think there's no indication that this is the entomoids, so you have to make that assumption. But the emoids who, told humans, hey, we come in peace. And it's really too bad that this unknown race that nobody knows anything about has destroyed our civilization. We're now going to attack cybernetic augment clinics because we just hate cybernetic augments. And so these cybernetic augments make humans weak, but the emoids attack the clinics and destroy them. And then this causes the cybernetic augmented humans to fall into disrepair. Then we get mention of the molluscoids again. And then again in the timeline, we get this new race called the Draconids. But in the next sentence, they're called the Darkonids. So I don't know which it is. It's just two sentences. They're Draconids in one, Darkonids in the other. Both names could be right. Both names are possibly equally valid. I don't know. So these are all the species. But then later, when you get through all of the convoluted timeline stuff, you then get some pages on developing systems, and then you get the extended timeline, which is kind of a rehash of stuff in the timeline. It's not an extended timeline. It's just a redo and actually retconning of some of the things in the timeline. So in the retconned extended timeline, we then learn that there's only 4 races. Where's Captain Picard when you only need 4 lights? We learned that there's only 4 races: the humans/humanoids. I don't know. The Uriel, who evolved from the Yaz, and the Arlet, who evolved from the Dralocytes, and the Entomoids, which evolved. So all these other races that have been mentioned are like retconned out, and so there's only the 4 races, and oh shit, here we go. Oh well, yeah, the molluscoids show up again in the retcon material to be the bad guys, but then there's hints like you don't know anything, and maybe it's the molluscoids we don't know anything about them. We don't even know their name. That's all the races. You almost need like a flow chart and arrows and diagram to show relationships. It's really weird. Now, my next item is I want to talk about problems of scale and a total lack of understanding of space and the scale and size of the Milky Way, and total misunderstanding of astronomy by the game designer. So number one, on page one of this lore dump, you get a quote, "A not too distant spiral arm of our galaxy." Well, not too distant. The Orion arm, where the Earth's solar system is 3,500 light years across. That's 3,500 light years across. And originally they were saying that it was 10,000 light years long, but there was a new study done in 2016 and they came up with 20,000 light years long. So the distances between the arms, I couldn't find solid numbers for those, but they look to be like quite possibly on the scale of like 6,000 light years between the arms, so it's but not too distant. It's just go down the road a ways, take a left, and go 2 light years, and you'll see it. So next we get on page 3 of the lore dump, we get the port engine nacelle detonated, sending the ship out of the system. Now this is an arc ship, a colony starship, and so its engine blows up, and it sends the ship out of the star system. Now, the problem with that is the diameter of a star system is just so massive. The solar system is 10,000 times the distance between the sun and the Earth. Okay, so light takes 8 minutes and change, about 8 minutes and 25 seconds to leave the sun and reach the Earth. To reach the edge of the solar system, it takes 555 days. So an engine nacelle blowing up and blasting a ship out of the solar system is kind of like on that. Even though we loved Space 1999, they had the nuclear explosions and it blasted the moon out of Earth's orbit and it went off sailing in space, and every week they met a new adventure, and because it was an episodic show, and a new race and so on. So it's kind of on that level, and it just shows, this little detail just shows a total lack of understanding of the size and scale of even the solar system. On page 6, we get the terminus belt. Now, the terminus belt's an asteroid belt, and they're gonna find a really space magic-y element there. And we get this statement that the terminus belt is closer to the planet Uriel than any other system. Now, I would interpret system as star system, but it's closer to Uriel than any other system. And then later on, they retcon it to say it's the planet Nimbus. So this is a complete lack of understanding that asteroid belts are within star systems. They are failed planets that failed to form. And so they are a belt of rubble within a star system. They're not floating out there in space. Well, it's closer to that star system than any other. There's no huge, how much rock would have to be in a belt if there was an asteroid belt out there in space, not in a star system? It's just a total lack of understanding of the way things are. So, and then on page 7, we have, in the remote regions of the furthest arm of a typical galaxy is a small and insignificant planet of a small and plain-looking solar system in the Dalliance system. So we have a system within a system. They probably should have said that it's called the Dalliance system. Then our last astronomy mistake is page 15, where we are told that a super Earth is a planet that is within the habitable zone and does indeed have life on it. No, it is not. A super Earth is a really massive Earth with really high gravity that happens to be in the habitable zone and that would have liquid water, which could support life. It is not this definition. This definition is total fancy, and its super Earths are just super massive planets that happen to be in the same habitable zone with liquid water, just like Earth. And so they have astronomy has identified a number of these. We do not know at this point whether or not they support life. They could, but we do not know for sure. And so this statement, this helping us identify what a super Earth is totally fallacious. Now, Dave, the designer, totally steals and riffs and borrows from everywhere because he is not able to come up with an original idea. And so I've got a list here of things just from this 15-page dump. So the first one is the Atsinki in the title. The Atsinki species, I spoke about them. They're mentioned by the Entomoids. By the way, they're part of our civilization, the Atsinki. They disappear. They're just not anywhere else. That's just that one reference and gone. So the Atsinki also happens to be the title of a 2013 documentary on Arctic cowboys who are dealing with reindeer above the Arctic Circle. And seeing as how he's got this whole Dave Films US thing and has been fascinated with documentaries and independent filmmaking, I'm inclined to believe that he did riff Atsinki, which was the title of a 2013 not rated documentary for this species in his game. Next, we get on page 4 the Yaz, the Drawl, and the Ver races, which are clearly rifted straight from Star Frontiers and are the Yazarians, Drawlocite, and the Versk race, which sometimes get mispronounced by people like even me as the Versk. And so he has totally rifted them. Number 3, we get a mysterious governmental body that turns up in the timeline called the Nordics, who are tall, blonde, blue-eyed, and they're offering technological advances with strings attached to the treaty. And can we say, wait for it, master race, Heil Space Nazis! And what fun would a game be if it didn't have space Nazis, right? Now, here's the thing. In this racial political environment we find ourselves in 2022, how dumb can you be that you're going to raise the specter of master race, Aryan master race, blonde hair, blue eyed, super advanced guys in charge, got special. How dumb can you be to incorporate that into your game? I mean, it's just like one of those stupid things in history that you kind of want to go, well, let's forget about that and let's not bring it up. So yeah, space Nazis showing up, master race space Nazis. Now, really, Tom, are you sure? Well, the thing that kind of makes me feel sure about it is that 2 paragraphs away from this paragraph on the Nordics, the Aryan race, blonde hair, blue eyed, tall, superhumans, is 2 paragraphs in front of that. We were talking about eugenics. So, eugenics was something that was very, very much of concern to the Nazis and Hitler. And so it's just, oh man, bad decision. Bad decision. Number 4, we get the in the government, the CCOP, which is actually the civilization of civilized peoples, which should really be COCP, but he constantly makes it CCOP. I don't know why. But that government has this Burgess Commons Chamber. So I looked it up. Well, guess what? I thought I'd heard of that because I had lived in England. And the House of Commons in England has a group within it called the Burgesses. And they originally numbered 222 seats. 12 more were added when Wales was added to the country. And it should be noted that the Burgess Common Chamber and the General Assembly, which was also mentioned with it, were retconned out of existence when he wrote the extended timeline after the 3 pages of how you roll up a star system. So I don't know why it was mentioned, but he mentioned it, and he just totally rifted the Burgesses from the House of Commons, and we get the Burgess Commons Chamber. Then we get Verona Vinge. Now, it should be noted that only in 2 places it's Verona Vinge, and then in the extended timeline, it gets switched to Werner Vinge, which you might recognize as a sci-fi author from California and a university professor, I believe, as part of his credits. So Werner Vinge from the Barbarian Fringe, and he keeps saying that throughout his document. It's got a nice rhyme to it. I kind of like that. Vernora Vinge from the Barbarian Fringe. So I don't know what he has against Werner, that made him a woman. I don't know if that's a slight. Maybe Werner's identifies that way. I really don't know, but it seems like there's a slight here on Werner. And that's going to make a little more sense when we get to like item number 9. Uriah Heep is both a rock band and a Dickens character from David Copperfield. Now, I knew it was a Dickens character from David Copperfield, and right away people were like, "Oh yeah, no, it's a rock band." And what's funny was that was a day ago, and today I was driving through the one town over from where I live, and I saw somebody with a Uriah Heep concert T-shirt. I was like, "Oh my God!" I'd never heard of them before, and then boom, there they are. So I actually believe this use of Uriah Heep comes out of Dickens' David Copperfield. Now, other people have slighted Dave and said there's no way he's into literature like that. Look, David Copperfield's been made into a movie. And this character has a very particular personality. He's very slimy and obsequious, and so when you find out that his wife is Becky Sharp, and Becky Sharp is the protagonist from Vanity Fair, and she's very flirty and trying to use her sexuality to pull people in, and it's like these two are a pair. So I don't think it's the rock band per se. I really think it's the Dickens character, because he's explicitly married to Becky Sharp, who of course is very recognizable as being from Vanity Fair. So next we get the Herkimer Battle Corporation. And that's rifted straight out of the movie Mystery Men with their Herkimer Battle Jitney, which was the vehicle they rode in the battle. And he's totally rifted it from there. Next, connected to the Herkimer Battle Corporation, we get the Genomic X 1138, which some of you might recognize as being something connected to George Lucas. It was from his early student film work, THX 1139, a sci-fi film he did and there's some clues in the writing that he's taking a shot at George Lucas in this. I'm not going to go into it, but there's some clues there that he's taking a shot at George Lucas with this. Then we get the UPF, which is straight out of Star Frontier's IP. And then we get the Pangalactic Mega Corporations, again, rifted straight out of Star Frontiers. Can't make up his own new corporations. He's got to rip off Pangalactic Corporation from Star Frontiers. And then, this is the fun one, Element 115. Where to begin with this? Well, some of you might recognize it. It has been present in UFO conspiracy theories through the 80s and 90s. It was used in the XCOM video game. It was used in the Activision game Dark Reign. It was used in the TV series 7 Days to power a time machine. Element 115 is featured in Call of Duty Black Ops subseries, in the Nazi Zombies game mode. There's those Nazis again. Damn space Nazis. And it was also used in Tomb Raider 3 video game. And it was used in the 10th season of the X-Files in the episode called My Struggle as Element 115 Unum Pentium. Except now that it's used in Star Frontier's New Genesis, it's discovered as Element 115, which is a real element in the real world called Moscovium. It's discovered by scientists working in Moscow. But now, in the Star Frontier's New Genesis game, it's going to be changed to Justinium 115. Where might that name have come from? Justinium. Could it be Justin Lanassa of New TSR getting his little stamp on the game? And then finally, we get Jaegers. Now, this statement it's a very unclear statement, but it's tied to the governmental accords. And it's Jaegers, and it's spelled Chuck, like Chuck Yeager, with a Yaegers, like Chuck Yeager, first man to break the speed of sound. Except I do not think he's referring to Chuck Yeager. There is this tradition in Germany, in Germanic lands, so whether it's Austria, Prussia, wherever, where they would call light troops, particularly light mountain troops who can move through the forest, the mountains, they would call them Jaegers. It's the German word for hunter. And so I think that's what he's referring to, because within the context, it seems like a law enforcement body. But Jaegers, the light troops, the German light troops, are spelled Jaegers. No Y. So I think he's riffing off of that for his setting. That's really not such a problem. It's not something that's been used much by that I've seen in games other than war games. When you have troops who are classified as Jaegers. But he totally got the name wrong. I just don't know why. Now, there's one other name in this, in this info dump I was not able to identify, and perhaps you, the listening audience, can. It's Samuel Buckus. Buckus is spelled Bucus. And I did some Googling, and I just didn't find it. It's, nothing was really turning up that jumped out at me when I went looking. So I have not divined where he's riffing on Samuel Buckus. And since Samuel Buckus is in that group of Venora Vinge and Uriah Heep and Becky Sharp, since he's in the middle of that, I think he's got to be something somewhere in the world that he's riffing off of with that. So, if you figure that out, please drop a comment, because I'd like to know. I'm just curious on that. And there were one or two other things that, maybe he was riffing on something, but I didn't list them. So these are 3 areas of problems I have identified in the info dump that's done in this Star Frontiers history by David Johnson. Let me show that. Show that again. And this is, again, in Alarms and Journeys, number 13, available on Kindle Plus for free. Do not pay for it. You will have buyer's regret. This I guarantee you. Absolutely. So this is Tom for Tabletop Taproom, reviewing the first solid information we've been given on Star Frontiers, New Genesis. It should be noted, this is a game that was on its way back from the printers 2 months ago. And it still hasn't released, but we're getting this in Alarms and Journeys fan magazine that's squatting on alarms and excursions. Don't confuse the two. One's a legit fan magazine. So this is part 1. Part 2, I will do a summarization of the timeline. And oh boy, is that going to be, that one's going to be fun. So you want to stay tuned for that for part 2. Until then, this is Tom for Tabletop Taproom signing out. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my subscribers. You guys are great. And keep on gaming.